Hello everyone, and welcome to our next installment of the Villa video series, which is our new way to share important information with Villa families in a way that's hopefully convenient for all of you. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Jill Zimmerman, and in addition to being a longtime parent here at Villa and a previous member of the board of directors, I'm currently the Chief Financial Officer here at Villa Montessori. My background is in accounting and finance with large accounting firms and companies, and I'm a licensed CPA in the state of Arizona. This video will cover the really exciting topic of the fiscal year 2020 budget. Personally, I really love the numbers side of an organization and think you can learn a lot by looking at the figures. So we'd like to share our current year school budget with all of you so you can be well informed too. Here's a brief list of the topics we'll cover in our short video today. Number 1, what type of entity is Villa Montessori? Number 2, what are our sources of funding or revenues? Number 3, what do we spend most of our funds on? And number 4, where do I get more information if I have questions? So let's just jump right in. Villa Montessori is a single not-for-profit organization and is comprised of both a private school for the infant through preschool levels and a public charter school for kindergarten through 8th grade. Since we have both private and charter components, Villa receives revenues from a few different sources, which we'll show you next. Our largest category of revenues is state and federal funding, which makes up a little more than half of our total incoming revenues. Tuition and fees generates our next largest portion of revenues at around 43% of the total. Fundraising makes up an additional 4% of revenues, and interest income generates the last 1%. Here's what our revenues look like in a graph format, where you can see that state and federal funds plus tuition and fees make up approximately 96% of our total revenues. This slide breaks down the state and federal funds a little further to provide you with some more detail. State equalization funds include our base and charter level funding from the state of Arizona. It's important to note that in Arizona, a charter school student will receive, on average, anywhere between $1,000 and $5,000 less per student than a public district school does, and that charter schools receive no state funds at all for facilities or maintenance costs. The next component of state and federal funds are classroom site dollars, and you may know that more commonly as Prop 301 funds. This comes from an additional sales tax that was approved by the voters back in 2000 and is now extended out through 2041. The next largest piece of state and federal funding is Villa's IDEA Basic Grant, which is a federal grant that covers a very small portion of our special education costs every year. Finally, instructional improvement funds and Prop 123 funds are both small amounts each year and are generated from Native American gaming in Arizona along with state land trust funds. Flipping back to our summary of revenues, the next largest category after state and federal funding is tuition and fees. These dollars are generated by payment of tuition by families enrolled in our private school programs, after-school programs for charter students, summer school programs, annual extracurricular activity or ECA fees, and the fees for the many trips that our elementary 2 and middle school students take. This generates 43% of our total revenues. Our last two categories in revenues are fundraising, which generates 4%, and interest income, which generates a little less than 1%. We're actively working to increase the impact of both of these areas. Now that we've covered revenues and where our funding comes from, let's turn to the budgeted expenses for fiscal year 2020. Here is a summary that breaks down our expenses into 8 primary categories. As you can see, the top 2 rows represent our personnel costs, including salaried and hourly compensation, and all employee benefits, including medical insurance and our 401k plan. These costs combined represent 66%, or 2/3 of our entire expense budget. We continually strive to increase compensation for our teachers and staff, and it is always our top priority. We have 108 of our 128 total employees working in the classrooms with children, and only 16 in administration and maintenance. Compensation for teachers has rightfully been a big topic of discussion in the news for the past couple of years, due in part to the Red for Ed movement. Here's a summary showing what we've been able to accomplish in terms of compensation increases over the past 2 years. We continue to focus on ways to increase teacher compensation and provide a supportive, healthy working environment for everyone who works at Villa. Last year, we had a 97% teacher retention rate, and we hope we're doing well in this area. Back to our summary of all expenses in the fiscal year 2020 budget. If we exclude the top 2 categories for personnel-related costs that we just reviewed together, the next largest category is program expenses. Here's a summary of what types of costs are included in program expenses. All of these are costs that directly benefit the students in their classrooms and are part of the curriculum being delivered at each level. While we hear that teachers in public district schools are being asked to come up with personal funds to cover supplies in their classrooms, Villa is proud to cover these costs for each teacher every year at approximately $3,000 per classroom. Well, that concludes our fiscal year 2020 budget discussion. We hope you found the information helpful and informative. If you have any questions about Villa's finances or budgets, please don't hesitate to stop by and see me either in the main office or email me.